thank you so much for having us here today to talk to you about how to tell your story, how to brand it, and how to show it. We're really thrilled to be here in this format, which is different, but we're excited to make it work for you. So
we really love this program. Sorry to interrupt. That's
absolutely.
what we're going to be. We're going to constantly be interrupting each other. So get used to it.
We do. All the time. Even when we're doing it through a screen. So I'm Peyton Rowe.
And I'm Scott Sherman. We're both professors at VCU, Virginia Commonwealth University in Richmond, Virginia.
Yep, and as he said, we're excited to be here and help with this program. This is at least our 5th year. I don't know how long. Too many to count, and it just feels like yesterday. It's so great. So as you can see, our goal is to help you pitch your ideas that you're coming up with to solve the problems that you've chosen. So that's what we're here to do.
And you're going to see that there's 3 big parts to this presentation that we've got. The first one is called Tell It, and it's to find out what your story is, the story of your product and what it's going to do. The second part is the brand it part, and that's to design a logo which will give it a sort of a central focus, a visual that the audience can connect with. And then the last part is the presentation part. It's crafting the presentation of what you're going to give to your audience.
Absolutely, definitely. So let's get started with the first section, which is how do you tell a good story? And why a story? Why do you think we should tell a story? In this case, we would say that, and you all might call out answers, but I can't hear you because
I've got one, because stories make us care about what's going on. If we just gave the facts, people don't tend to relate to it and care as much as if you take those facts and you wrap them into a story. So that's why we're going to be focusing on a story with your presentation.
Absolutely. And there are also other things that we know, but you don't necessarily think about. Stories are easy to understand, and they're believable. They're usually interesting, and they get us to act. So if you think about when you first meet somebody, you often say, "Hi, my name's Peyton, and I'm from Richmond, and these are the things I do." And I start to tell my own story, and that's how we engage with each other. So it's really part of how human connection occurs.
Mm-hmm. And so to start us off, we're going to look at a case study of a story for a product that's similar to maybe some of the products of the people who are working in this program. And we'll pay attention to this story because we're going to use it sort of as a case study to build your story and to build your presentation, right?
Yeah, so here it is.
Water. It's life's most basic need. But there's a water crisis in our world right now. Seriously, a crisis. Nearly 1 billion people live without clean drinking water. It's happening all over the world, especially in developing areas of sub-Saharan Africa, Southeast Asia, and Latin America. It's a water crisis because it starts with water. But water affects everything. Education, health, poverty, and especially women and children. Let's look at a family caught in the water crisis. It's likely they live on less than $1 a day. When they're thirsty, they can't just turn on the faucet for a nice cold glass of water. They don't have a faucet. Instead, the women and children go off to collect water. Many walk up to 3 hours a day to the nearest swamp, pond, or river to gather water that's been sitting out in the open, exposed to all kinds of germs. Time spent gathering water is time they can't spend learning to read, write, earn an income, or take care of their family. Some women in sub-Saharan Africa spend more time collecting water than any other activity they do in the day. And the walk isn't just hard, it's dangerous. The women are alone and burdened with 40 pounds of water. Many get hurt. Sometimes they're even attacked. When they make it home, the little water they've collected isn't clean. Some families know their water is contaminated with germs that cause diarrhea. dehydration, even death. But what choice do they have? Kids, especially babies, are affected most by these germs. About every 19 seconds, a mother loses one of her children to a water-related illness. And each day, almost 1 billion people are living this way. Until they get a little help. The water crisis is solvable. There are solutions. Some are brand new and innovative, like water filtration systems. Some are age-old, like drilled or hand-dug wells. These solutions bring clean water much closer to the people who need it. A safe water project near a village restores hours each day to a person's life. This time, it's opportunity. It's freedom to go to school and get an education, to work or start a business, to raise a family. Africa alone could save 40 billion hours each year. That's the entire annual workforce of France. Clean water means less disease. That's less money spent on medicine, which means more money for books and school uniforms. And if the water project is built near a school, it can increase attendance, especially among young girls. The water crisis is vast, but we can solve it. Just $20 can provide one person with access to a clean water project in their village. And this will mean more than clean water. Because water changes everything. Join us.
So hopefully you like that story about charity water. And one of the things that you'll notice in that story, there was drama. There was things that were not ideal. And all stories have drama. And the reason why stories have drama is because it makes the story interesting. It can be conflict. It can be stress. It can be pain and suffering, fear. It can be bacteria, like what was in the charity water. And it can be humor.
Definitely. So good stories have 3 different parts. Okay, so they have a beginning, which in our scenario and what you all are talking about is the problem. There's the middle, which is the solution. And then there's the end, which are the results. Well, that's true in any story, but it's particularly true in how you all are setting it up to really get people engaged and understand what you're talking about.
And in our story, the beginning, or where the problem was, starts off with the kids having to walk 3 hours to get to the water, and that the water was dirty when they got there, and then walking back with the heavy water and all those things. So those are all the problems. The middle part, the solution, was the classic well, and then the end, the results, the benefit of the solution was that students are healthier, they are educated, they have a better standard of living, and all those good things. So that's the simplest part, breaking down that story into very simple parts. You can see the format of it.
Definitely. And so when you start to craft your story, you want to think about a few different things to help structure it. So you want to think about who the victims are, who's suffering from whatever the problem is, the problem itself, of course, your solution, short-term benefits, so what makes it better right immediately, and then long-term benefits, what might make it long-term benefit down the road, like being able to go to school in the charity water example.
Yeah, so let me jump in. So the short-term benefits for charity water was that people got clean water. So there was the short-term benefit. The long-term benefit of that was they're healthier, better educated, better standard of living, those kind of things.
Exactly. So that's what that story included. And it also, part of that, the solution is also, it's what's needed in order for you to craft that. So if we move on, so here's what we want you to do. We usually do this in about 10 minutes. So I don't know what your time frame is, but we want you guys to think of your idea and write the short story about it that includes those things: victims, problem, your solution, those short-term results, the long-term result, and what's needed from people you're talking to make this happen. Is it their time? Is it their money? Is it their, support on social media? Whatever is needed. So that's what the activity would be if you guys can craft your own story.
Yeah, so really look at it as a story, and see if you can have each of those little parts into it. Um, go. So welcome back from the story. Hopefully in the 10 minutes you took, you got to sort of craft a story, start to see how you had victims and how you had problems and how you had solutions and the benefits of those solutions. And then what would it take to put that all together? And so what we want to do now is sort of help you build upon your story and to make it a little bit more effective.
Yeah, so how can your story be richer? So one of the things that's true about human understanding is that seeing is believing, and that sensory things, reference to sensory things and showing them will bring your story to life. It'll make your idea real and your solution believable. So, and when we talk about the senses, we talk about the 5 senses. Hey, Scott, what are the 5 senses?
Smell, taste, see, hear, touch.
Yeah.
Is that 5?
I think that was 5. I mean,
Yeah.
unless we did 6 sense, but that's different. Anyway, so yeah, so referencing these things in your story is a great way to make it richer and more relatable to your audience.
Yeah. So as an example, we can say something's funny and just put the word funny and there it is. We can show people laughing, and so they are experiencing something that's fun. Or another thing is that we can make people laugh. We can show them something that will make them feel the emotion of funny, and show them something else.
I've seen this so many times, and every single time I can't help it. I even looked at it last night, and the dog, I just can't help it. It makes me giggle. So well done, Scott.
But the key is to show things instead of just saying things. So you can think about that.
Okay, so if we look at this image, you can see seeing is believing. You can, by comparing the 2 glasses of water, and one is obviously not clean and one is clean. That's just a simple story that right there tells a simple story about the necessity of clean water.
And the next frame is it's seeing is believing. You can see there's dry dirt and there's crops. The story is very believable because it makes it real. It's understandable and it's very clear.
Right, and if we go to the next slide, you'll see that on the left side there are 3 images of what a community might look like that doesn't have access to clean water. You know, it's very dry. You know, they're showing the empty well, showing the kids having to work very hard to get the water and do things, and it's very difficult, versus the images on the right that show, wow, when you have access to clean water, you can be very green. It's much more easy. You actually have a faucet with running water, and then you can learn how to you have opportunity to go to school. So again, showing those images that make it believable. There's also research that shows that when you do a presentation that is mostly visual, 65% of people will remember it better. So visual, I don't know if you knew that, Scott. I found that out.
I did not.
I hope I got the percentage right, but it is true that mostly visual imagery, people will remember it better. So.
Okay, so the real thing that you want to do is you want to show the problem and show the solution. You just don't want to talk about it. You just don't want to describe it. So, and when you show the problem and the solution, you want to try to do it in a way that uses the 5 senses. Certainly with your presentation or a video presentation, using the taste, the sense of taste or the sense of smell isn't going to work. So it's a very visual thing.
Right. And so you can see, if we look back at our charity water example, so this showed the problem. There's no water coming out of the faucet, and they have to go to water that has a lot of germs from all kinds of wastes and is sitting out in the open. So that's showing the problem.
And then showing the solution, they showed that instead of walking so far to the water, now the water is much closer, and the students or the children now have the possibility of going to school and getting a better education, a better life, and things like that.
Exactly. So we have another do this. So we want each group to take about 10 minutes or so and write 10 sensory things that are parts of the problem and 10 sensory things that are parts or aspects of the solution. And making those lists will help you craft how you talk about your story in a more effective way.
And a more interesting way.
That's true.
All right. Come back in 10.
All right, we're back, and we hope that you found some 10 sensory things that are aspects of the problem and the solution, and some more ways to make your story interesting. If you noticed in the charity water example, they talked specifically and showed specifically women and their families. So if you make your story about an individual or a family, not just everybody in sub-Saharan Africa, it's more relatable. So it's a really great way to help people connect with your story and make it interesting.
Yeah, very often we'll introduce the audience to one individual person and say, this is Henry. He lives in a village, blah, 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 blah.
Yep.
The audience can identify with that individual person easier than if we just say, all of the people in this country or something like that. So really take it down to an individual level. It sounds a little backwards for a big problem like this, but it works with the audience. People engage to it.
Yeah, absolutely.
One of the things, and this is an obvious thing, is to make your story simple and clear. And it sounds so obvious, everybody be like, well, why not? But one of the things that we tend to do with our presentations is we get them too complicated, because you've been working on it for a long time and it's easy to get lost in the weeds, as they say. So if you can take your project and turn your problem, your solution, and the results into one sentence, just narrow it down to one sentence. You can build on it later, but take it down to the essence, meaning one sentence. Make sure you do that.
You may have heard before something called an elevator pitch. And the reason it's called that is, imagine if you got on an elevator on a not too tall a building, we're not talking the tallest building in the world, and you only had that elevator ride. You got on the elevator with someone who really needed to buy into your project, and you only had that elevator ride to convince them. How quickly could you tell that story so that they would go, yes, I'm in? So the shorter the better. You can always add more.
Good. So another thing that makes stories interesting is conflict and drama. And and so if you ever met my mother, she likes to tell stories that don't have conflict and drama. And they just sort of go on and don't have anything interesting. And after a while, you think, you don't say it, you think to yourself, Mom, what are you telling this story about? So you should tell a story about going to the grocery store and stopping at the red light and sitting there, and she saw a dog walk by, somebody walking a dog, and the light turns green and she goes along and she finds a parking space and goes into the grocery store. And that's her story.
Sorry, I almost fell asleep, Scott. Can you wait?
And just think about my mom's story if she was driving to the grocery store and saw somebody walking the dog, and then another car came and pow, ran into the dog. Now the story has conflict and drama, and there's a reason for the story. Without conflict and drama, there's not really a reason for the story. It's just an everyday event, and so there's nothing for it. So by putting in conflict and drama, it makes the story very interesting. It makes it memorable, and people are engaged in it.
Yeah, another example that I've seen once is, imagine, would you rather watch somebody walk across a room, or would you rather watch somebody walk on a tightrope over a canyon? That has a lot more conflict and drama. So.
Oh, very nice. Yeah. And going along with conflict and drama are victims. And so the person that's being injured, or the person that's in danger, a story needs victims because we start to relate to victims. We have conflict and drama, that's great, but if there's no victims to that, it's not as interesting.
And along with that, everybody likes a good bad guy or bad thing to sort of get frustrated with or angry at, that's causing this problem or is a big part of this problem. So putting that in the story is really important as well. You know, in this case, it could be the germs, or it could be the lack of fresh water. It could be, you know, the cow poop. But yeah, having a bad guy.
And so, in summary, to make a story interesting, you need individual family or individuals, or because that makes us connect to people better. It needs to be simple and clear because we can understand it a lot better then. We don't get lost. Conflict and drama and victims and a bad guy make it interesting, make us want to listen to it, and pull us in. And so that's how you make a story interesting. So for your product, figure out all of those things and weave them in, because every product has them. And so find them for yours, put it into your story.
Exactly, right. So as to kind of reiterate again, those are the things on the left to make a good and interesting story you need to have. Again, victims, make it an individual or person, don't make it like the whole, you know, country. The problem, make it very simple and clear what that problem is. Your solution should be tangible and sensory, as should the problem be, right? Short-term benefits, long-term benefits, and then what's needed to solve the problem. And then also adding in their conflict and drama, victims, and the bad guy or the bad thing, right?
Yeah. And then weave in the sensory things. And then you're going to start to have a story which will pull people into your product.
And you can begin to figure out how to present that story. So a good way to start to think about that is to create a 3-panel comic. So you can see, so there's no water, bring the water closer, things get better, and the kids can go to school.
Or you can go into seven panels. The number of panels for your comic or for your storyboard, it doesn't matter. I always like to have an odd number, and I don't know why. So 3, 5, 7, 9 gets a little bit long, but you can take any good story and weave it into a series of panels. So looking at the charity water, we have the story is basically there. People need water. It takes them 3 hours to get it. But once they get to that water, it's contaminated. And then you can see the highlight is the solution here. It's the biggest panel. You've got the short distance to a well, and the benefit or the results of that are education, and the one that's there, which I can't see, so we're going to edit that out.
Save more money. It's really hard because it's really small, but you know, you can save more money, and it affects everything, right? If you remember the beginning, it said clean water affects everything, for sure. And I know, pick me. I know why you like odd numbers for this. Pick me.
Okay, yes, you.
Yeah, excellent. Because it's very symmetrical. So you can have the key element in the middle, and so you have, you know, whatever's on the top and whatever's on the bottom is equal. So that's why you like it. That's why I like it. So just
okay.
All right.
Sounds good.
So the last do this of this section would be to take some time and make either a 3 or 7 panel comic.
Or 5.
Or 5, that's true. Yeah, we didn't put that in there. I don't know why. Oh, well.
Yeah.
And sort of remember all these things we talked about to make it interesting.
So welcome back. Welcome back. I hope that you're able to craft your story into a series of panels, and you were able to find victims and problems and drama and results, long-term results, short-term results, and start crafting it into a story that you can see visuals and that have sensory aspects to them.
Yeah.
So what we've done in the first part is that we talk about what is the story of your product and why stories are important. And the real goal is to help you have a really strong presentation for your product. We looked at the 3 big parts of a story, how to make them interesting with conflict and drama and those kind of things, and to focus on the 5 senses, and then list them into a list of problems and a list of solutions, and then simplify your story into a comic. But first, try to simplify it into just 1 sentence for each part.
Yeah, right. So now we're going to go forward and talk about how to brand your idea and your story. Really about designing a logo to go with your product. And there's some key elements to understand about logos. We're going to talk about that, and then there'll be we will give a demo about how to craft one pretty easily.
Yeah. So let's look at some famous logos that are out there. FedEx, Apple, the Major League Baseball. These are considered to be well-known as well as famous logos. Some logos you might not be familiar with, but they've got a real pedigree to them. They're pretty famous as far as logo designers go. And so one of the first things for a logo, it should be simple. Now you can go.
Simple, easy to read, and easy to understand quickly. You don't want to try to say too much in a logo, right?
Yeah.
So if we see these 3 here, it's the Volkswagen, the I Love New York, and the IBM. You can see how very simple they are.
One of the things, if you look at bad logos or logos that have too much going on, they're not simple. And in a way to see, so the logo for Verizon on the left was their original logo. They had it for many years, and then they simplified it to just Verizon with the check. So the simplicity of it, they finally woke up. The logo for ADS Videography, they want to say that they do video, which is in the name. And then they want to say that they do wedding photography or wedding videography. So they want to show that. Bad logo. I mean, it says a lot. It doesn't leave anything out, but it's a bad logo because it says too much. When you say too much, you lose everybody.
Yeah, way too much, added too many things. So sometimes also a way to judge how is your logo working well visually is because we know they need to be simple, but they're also very compact. They kind of stay together rather than pieces going out like that. So one approach would be able to draw a circle or a triangle or rectangle around the logo, and there's not a lot of extra white space or too many things kind of sticking out from it. So you can see that with the ABC and the FedEx logo and the Major League Baseball logo. You can draw a shape around it, and they're all together and very compact, and that's a good thing. It makes it easier on our eyes. If you go back to the Verizon examples, the old logo they had for many years, yes, you can draw a rectangle around it, but there's a lot of white space and it kind of feels like that check on top is sticking out. versus the newer version, it's very compact. It still has the check, which is part of their brand, but it's a lot more cohesive that way, for sure.
Yeah. And when Peyton talks about white space, she's talking about sort of the area of a logo that has nothing in it. And you can see that the FedEx logo uses white space to have the little arrow in there. In between the E and the X, there is an arrow.
An arrow? I cannot see that now, Scott. I can't.
Which is white space that's used as a design element. And then for the Major League Baseball, they use white space for the baseball, for the batter, and the batter's bat separates the red and the blue. And so the white space is a design element within there to create something. With the Verizon logo on the left, white space is just this massive blah.
Yeah, empty, useless white space. Yeah. Thank you. Got all designery on me there.
Yeah. So another another thing about logos is that they're visual. They're not just letters or words or something like that. And so you can see with NBC, their logo was a peacock because it was color, and they wanted to promote this as color TV. It's an old logo that they've continued to keep on. Families logo, you can see it's just basically the word families, but they put a family in there with the letters. And then WWF, World Wildlife
Fund.
Yeah. They've got a panda in there. So it's not the wrestling group.
No. Well, I don't think they're having pandas wrestle, although they roll around a lot when they're eating bamboo and just having fun. So yeah. Anyway, okay. Another thing that's important to think about with logos, even though we're keeping them simple and you can be visual with them, is you want to be smart with type or typography and the letters that you use. Pick the right typeface. You don't have to go crazy with some very complicated looking typeface. There are a ton out there. But the more you can sort of complement if you have an image, or use a typeface that feels right. Like Northwest Airlines has what's called a serif typeface, which has little elements on the ends. If you look on the T or any of them, they're called serifs. And the Giving Canada and the Stink Bath Bombs are called sans serif because they don't have little details on the ends of the letters. I think Northwest Airlines definitely feels better with a serif typeface. It's trustworthy. It's solid. I believe it. So think about what might fit for what your product is. And also think about the spacing around the letters and between the lines of type. That makes a big difference. It all still needs to feel compact, like it goes together. And in these three, if we were to draw a rectangle around them, they'd still be very compact, including with the letters that are put with them. So
yeah. So the two easy places, and we're going to go to the very basics of logo design. The two easiest places to place an icon or a visual and have it look right are centered above the type, like with Giving Canada and with Stink Bath Bombs, or to the left of the type as with Northwest Airlines.
Yeah.
And one more part about the simplicity of type. If you use one typeface, it's going to be a lot simpler. Yeah. If you use two typefaces, it gets a little more complicated. 3 typefaces in one logo is generally too many. So keep it simple. Try to go with one typeface. You can see with Stink, they used one typeface. It's all uppercase and then lowercase, and they changed colors. It gets a little colorful. It gets a little too unsimple. Giving Canada, Northwest, they changed the size. It's the same typeface, and they spread out airlines because that's what airlines get people to do.
Yeah.
So simplicity is a real key to good logo design.
Definitely. And to cover the basics, right? Simple, compact, Be visual and be smart with type. And, you know, we keep saying simple, and it is true, but it's simple with the right personality that fits your product, right? So it's not just everything set in Arial or Helvetica. It's just not that everything's just this big flourish, because people won't understand it. They won't see it. It needs to be seen and understood quickly.
So Peyton, why don't you show us what
Me?
simple logo design, how it can be done fairly quickly, and simply and effective.
No problem. I'm on it. Hi, everybody. Okay, I'm over here on Google Draw. I mean, I'm just using that because I know it's available to everyone. And so let's pretend that we are making a logo with a product called Water Saver. So I just typed this in here. This is just in Arial, right? And even if you just use Arial, let's say, you know, and you can see we have a tendency to type with all, you know, uppercase, lowercase. And we think, oh, maybe we should just go ahead and do it like that, right? Remember, we talked about simple changes can make and with the type, can make the type look different and better. So what if, for example, we made this bolder, and that's all we simply did, right? Wouldn't that be, that already starts to look kind of interesting and different, right? Then you could easily do things like, well, maybe I want to make this all caps instead, and that'll make it look a little bit different. Saver. And then we would probably make it a little bit smaller because it's, you know, it's kind of big. So we can make it feel like that, but then, you know, line it up. So they're just simple changes you can make to make it look a little bit more interesting, right? So then if you're like, I don't really like that, you could come and maybe you start to stack it like this, because the idea is I want to have Saver be the kind of the most important thing. So maybe I'm gonna do this and have, maybe I can make this bold and even bolder. I don't know if I can even make it bolder, but maybe I can even make this sort of lighter. All I'm doing is Arial. And then I start to think, well, you know, maybe I can find making this a little bit smaller again. So let's see. Even if you stacked it a little bit, right? Like, look at that. You're like, okay, that's kind of cool. Maybe this could be italicized. Would that be kind of neat? Maybe I can do this. Now, it's a little bit harder on a Google Draw to kind of put space or between the letters, but you could try to, whoopsie, I hate when it does that. You could kind of put some space in there to maybe, you know, simulate creating the space. That's a little spread out, but we're just going to try that anyway. So you could try a few little things. I'm not sure that's really all that great, right? But you start to say, okay, it starts to look a little bit different. Maybe I can do, you know, maybe I can do like this, and I'll move this over here, and that's, maybe I can put a little bit, maybe a little, an image, right? What if an image is right here? It's kind of to the left. So what if I got like a little water drop and kind of put it right here? That might be kind of cool, right? To kind of help tie it in a little bit. It's not a real perfect rectangle, but we're going to try to fit, we're going to try to fit it in there. So that could be cool. We could do that. So they're just ways you can play around with it to make it work, right? And that's just using Arial. I haven't even chosen any other typeface, and there are a ton out there, even just on Google. And that right there, that's already more interesting than just the words. So what if I, in terms of the, did something like this? I'm going to bring these guys over here. So here's a way you could say, okay, I want it to be water, and this is one typeface. Now I know we talked about only using two typefaces. I mean, just one if you can. And I think actually this might be the same. No, these are two different ones. This is Railway, and then this is another one that's called Alpha Slab, which might work. But you can see that it really, this is a little bit larger, and this is a little bit smaller but bolder, so the emphasis is on there. And I've added a blue color, which could help. And then also maybe over here's another version. I've made this Pacifico. I think it's the same idea there. But you could also, even if we did this, let's pick Railway, and I haven't even added an icon yet, right? I'm going to bring this over here. And what if I did this? And I did saver. And I like to do lowercase in this situation because it lines up better. But maybe this guy is a bolder version of railway, and I know you can't see me picking that out. Well, yeah, you can. It is on the screen. Good. What if this was like that? Water saver, and then this became the blue. I don't remember which blue it was. I think it was a little darker blue than that. There we go. Look, that's kind of cool too, right? And you could maybe bring this guy over and put it here, and that could be a neat little logo there, water saver, right? So just simple choices that with the things that are out there can make those logos simple, right? So I said simple like 3 times, which I think is funny. All right, and again, this is just in Google Draw. You may have more advanced programs. I'm not sure. I always like to use the most basic tools that we have. Oh, I like this blue better. I'm going to move these down here and just show you, maybe you can also, if you find other visual elements you wanted to make an icon, here's a kind of a drop, and you could take this. I'm going to make this a little smaller. Kind of have it fit. That could be something that you put over top maybe. Let's make these guys a little smaller. They'd all be the same blue. Whoa! Oh, it doesn't want to go smaller that way. Don't you love it when you see it? So I'm going to make this bigger. Haha. For now, to make it easier. Because you don't want the picture to be too dominant of the image. I mean, because this is the most important part, but this, kind of balances out a little bit there. Or if we did this over here, and here's another water droplet I'm going to bring in, you might be able to take it and you could, let's see if we can turn it. Again, you could put it there. That kind of mirrors this shape right here, right? So they're simple manipulations to, I'm gonna make this the same color. It's driving me crazy, or it's close. I don't know if I can get it close to that light blue. That's too bright. Whoa, crazy. I was just trying to make the same color. Anyway, you can see here that simple changes on things you can do to move it around can make a strong logo, but it's still simple. It can still be fit into a rectangle, and it doesn't have to be complicated. It's just about saving water. Oh, here, I have another idea. The other thing is to try things quickly and make copies. You'd see me making copies a lot. So I'm gonna copy and paste this here. It's a little big. I can't because I made those so gigantic. But what if we move this over here? These are 2 separate places. What if this was here? Whoopsie. This came down here, and these 2 came up here. I mean, that might be kind of neat. Might be a little too much of a pointed at the top. Yeah, that's probably not too much, but I thought I'd try it. You never know. Oh, maybe this goes down here. That could be kind of cool. Sometimes you just don't know until you try. You just have to give it a whirl, and that's why I like to make lots of different copies of things. Ooh, if I can get that to be nearer that would be really neato. Neato is a very professional word when designing stuff. That could be kind of cool. Not too much. There we go. How about like that? That might be kind of cool. It's kind of compact. Looks like a face now, but that's the way I'll leave it. It's like a little nose and some eyes and a happy face, but that's good. I want to save water, so maybe that's the one to go with. So anyway, small changes with little things, with color, with weights of different typefaces like you saw here with railway. This is railway normal, and we're railway heavy and bold, and looking to make some changes to make it effective. I hope that's helpful, and I look forward to hearing about your projects.
So welcome back. Hopefully through your the steps that you followed along with Peyton on designing a logo, you were able to create an identity, a simple, effective, clear identity for your project. And we're not expecting any award-winning logos, but we're expecting logos that communicate with clarity and simplicity and are effective. When you have more time than the simple few hours of this project, then you can create a logo. You can try to complicate things and simplify them like a normal logo would be. But so stepping back, the 3 sections of this morning is to figure out what the story is of your project, excuse me. And then the second step is to create an identity for it, brand it. And the third step, which we're about to get to, is to craft the presentation or the show it section of it.
Definitely. Okay, so presenting can always seem challenging and a little scary at times, but the core to a good presentation is to be you, be authentically you. You don't have to get up there and I am presenting, it is important holding the notes, I am presenting and I must be formal. You need to be who you are because that people will believe you. You're gonna
and you can see, let me just interrupt him for a moment.
Yes, yes.
You can see Peyton and I firmly believe that you need to be yourself when making a presentation because it's much more authentic. Peyton and I, if you were to meet us on the street, walking our dog, we are just this, that's who we are. We're having a conversation with you, the audience, as opposed to presenting at you. So really be yourself is an important aspect of creating a relationship with the audience.
Yeah, absolutely. And it is like having a conversation. If you can help it, don't sit there and read notes. We've all seen presentations where it's like, good morning. Today I'm going to talk to you about what is happening in the world with lack of clean water.
Stop.
Was that painful enough? Yes.
Yeah.
But you don't have to memorize anything either. You can tell, I think you can tell that in this presentation, we haven't memorized it, but we know it and we're communicating it. And it's okay if we mess up a little bit, we just recover and get our point across. Be you, be authentically you, that's important.
And by the time you get done with your project, you know your project, you know the story. Sure, some little bullet points will help you make sure you go through and cover everything in the right order, but reading is a no-no. You will be fine.
Yeah, and yes, remember you are the expert on your product completely. So just go with that, you know it. So we have some tips on how to make good visuals.
Yeah, so well, tips to how to create a good presentation, and good visuals are an important aspect of that. And as you've heard us throughout this whole presentation, simplicity is a real key element, and that goes with your visuals in your presentation. Keep them simple. You can look at the charity water video. The visuals are very, very simple. It's easy for them to for the slide on the right, when they're talking about education and not having to go get the water, they can put, no, we don't go get the water, it's contaminated, and yes, and they show healthy girls all compact into one slide, but it's better to just keep it simple.
Yes, and along with keeping it simple, you need to be consistent with the way things look. That will help people remember it, that'll help people hear the story. So you can see, and being consistent with things like the same font, the same colors, the same style, and the same tone. So if you look at the images on this slide, so you see 3 different ways of telling the story. It's like, look, there's no water, it means no life. It's all done with type and icons. And then there's an image in the middle of somebody at a well who is out in the countryside. And then you have, let's make great education, but it's a classroom in a completely different environment. And so they don't all go together. So you want to be consistent with the visuals. And
you can see on the charity water video that there is consistency in color. There's consistency in the typeface that they used. The style of it, the overall feel of it is the same throughout the whole video. They did change color for impact a few times. So there's color change from the beginning when it was talking about the problem to the end, which was talking about the solution, there were slight color changes there. And then there was a couple times where they used red for impact.
Yeah, definitely. When you are thinking about your visuals, limit the bullet points and the text. And there's a very big habit we all develop, we all do it, where you want to just write everything on the slide and then you're going to read what's on the slide. And that's just not as effective as if you had a really powerful image on the slide and then all the things you said are being said by you. They don't need to be on the slide as well. You don't need to write it, say it, and show it. Did I get that right, Scott?
I believe so. As you can, one of the pet peeves for Peyton and I is that images are scaled improportionately. So
oh yeah, don't do it.
See the VW bus on the right is squished too much. Don't squish it. Also, don't use images that are blurry, that are enlarged too much.
So those were just some important things to think about. And what I'm going to do now is give you a sample presentation of an idea. It's actually of the charity water idea. So what it would look like if I was using slides to make the presentation, not a video recording. So I can give you an idea of some good ways to do that. So here we go.
And before you go, Peyton, one of the interesting things about this is that you took the charity water storyline that was done very well by a professional animation company and things like that, and you recreated it in a matter of minutes using only images that you could find on the internet. You didn't hire any photography, you didn't do anything. You basically recreated the presentation in a matter of minutes with zero budget and just a few minutes worth of work, right?
Yeah, and it was exactly because, to your point, it was a well-crafted story. And I broke it down using what we were talking about. I saw what the victims were, I thought who they were, mostly images, simplify the story, highlight the important parts, and go from there. So yeah, it was all found imagery. And
so everything that you're about to show everybody is stuff that they can do with their project.
Absolutely, right? Absolutely.
Absolutely. No, okay, take it away.
Take it away. Okay. Water is life's most basic need. But there is a water crisis occurring all over the world right now. And nearly 1 billion people live without clean drinking water. Like this little fellow who doesn't have clean drinking water in his own home. And it's a crisis because it's occurring all over the world. It's particularly harsh right now on developing areas of sub-Saharan Africa, Southeast Asia, and Latin America. And you may wonder, well, okay, what does that mean? What does it matter? Well, water and not having clean water affects every single thing. It affects education, it affects health, and poverty. And even harder is that women and children in these areas are struggling to get clean water the most, like this mom and her family, right? But let's look at how hard it is for them to get water. So when they're thirsty, when she's thirsty right there, that mom, you can't just go over there and get a cup of clean water from the faucet for her baby, right? There is no faucet. They actually have to spend the majority of their working day to go get water. It's often a 3-hour walk through dangerous areas alone and carrying 40 pounds of water back. It's really difficult. And the water has been sitting out in the open and it's exposed to all kinds of germs like waste and bacteria and pollution. And it's really, really difficult. And what's even worse is that women often spend most of their time collecting water more than cooking or cleaning or even collecting firewood. And if you're wondering what it feels like to carry 40 pounds of water, imagine carrying 5 gallons of milk all at one time. So the time carrying all of this heavy water is time they can't read, learn to read, earn money, or enjoy any kind of activity. It's really very, very difficult. And then on top of that, they often know that the water is contaminated. It's filled with germs that cause diarrhea or dehydration or even death. it's really, really hard to think about the sacrifices these kids and women and children are making. Again, giving up the opportunity to learn, to work, or just be with their families. But there are solutions. There are new solutions like water filtration systems that are new, or there are old solutions like digging hand-dug wells that can be brought close to the communities. And what's so great about these solutions is it brings that water closer to home, right, to the people who need it. And why is this great? Well, of course it's great that they have the water, but that time saved, it allows, opens up opportunities to learn, to how to read and write, to get an education, the freedom to work or to start a business or to spend more time taking care of your family, you know, and it's really about having a better life. Clean water means less disease, less money spent on medicine, more money towards education, and more time to build a better life. So what does it take to have this happen? Just $20 a day can provide one person access to a clean water project. So it means more clean water for them, but even better, it means a better life. And why? Because water changes everything. Thank you.
So we've looked at how to craft a story around your project. We've looked at creating an identity for your project, one that communicates what the project is, and it's simple, easy to understand. And then we looked at how to craft an entire presentation. But there's one more thing that's needed before you have a great presentation.
One more thing. Go tell your story.
So we usually would say, are there any questions? But we can't say that now.
No,
what we want to do is say that we've done this for I don't know how many years, and following the simple guidelines will help you create a basic, effective story presentation for your project. And we thank you for being part of this great program. We're big fans of it. And if we can help you with anything, I'm Scott Sherman. You'll see my email address there, and that's Peyton Rowe, and she's there.
And thank you for having us, and we look forward to hearing about all the great things that you guys do in the program.
Yeah.
Bye.